Hello, and welcome back to another episode of the Collective Clicks podcast. This is your host, Brandon Bateman, and today I talk with Michael from Launch Control. We talk about some of the common misconceptions around cold texting these days. What are investors doing successfully? Is it legal or is it not legal? And it's a pretty interesting conversation. So I'll see you there. Michael, how you doing today? Yeah, awesome. It's awesome to have you here and get to know you a little bit more. For those that don't know you and don't know Launch Control, tell me a little bit about who you are and the company too.
Yeah, absolutely. I've been with Launch Control pretty much since the beginning, around 2018, 2009, probably about 6 months or so after it started. My background is in sales and marketing. So I've worked for different size organizations, different industries, but always in that kind of sales marketing funnel. And so, Launch Control brought me on to help stand up the sales and marketing departments early on, and also to really work with investors who were having a bit of trouble understanding how to utilize text as an engagement channel and how to do that on a level where you were messaging a couple hundred people at a time, 150 people at a time, and being able to approach that from a level that was still personalized, that still felt one-on-one. So also a bit of kind of marketing coaching with the investors and helping them get up to speed on best practices. Obviously, it's a much, much bigger company now, a much bigger team. Our CS team, our customer success team is the best in the business, and they're really great at doing what I used to do, which is work directly with a lot of the investors on texting best practices, some of the real estate stuff they've learned from lots of different companies they've worked with. Really great resource inside the app for coaching and consultation.
Very cool. And obviously what Launch Control's known for, at least in my mind, is it's like the cold texting platform, right? That's what I think a lot of people have used it for a long time. So I'll just get right to the difficult questions, because I'm sure you're not blind to what's happening in the industry right now. A lot of people are having a hard time with cold text based on regulations. I know an investor that just had to pay $250,000 in a lawsuit for a cold text they sent. And that's just one story, right? So that kind of stuff is happening in the industry as a whole. I think it's scaring people away from the channel a little bit. What are you seeing that your clients are doing? And what's your view on how cold text fits into the marketing landscape right now?
Yeah, cold text has always been predicated on an exception or a byline, basically, in the TCPA guidelines, which says that if you're not selling a product or service, that you can engage in cold outreach. It's all very well documented, but what that means is that doesn't even come into play, of course, unless it comes to the case of somebody being litigious. And what I've seen anecdotally, now I'm not a TCPA lawyer, I can't give legal advice, but what I can tell you from being in the space is that it's very rare for a individual recipient to file a lawsuit. It's exceedingly rare. And if you think about the way that you receive cold outreach from any media, you've probably gotten cold text messages yourself. I'm sure that there's several emails in your inbox right now that you didn't opt into. They just popped in, right? So you don't take that litigious action for really light touch marketing that just comes through. Most of, from what I understand, is there can be some bad actor lawyers that get involved, and they see it as a payday opportunity, and they can prey on an industry. And so it's actually not the recipients that much that lead that sort of thing. When it happens, it's usually, again, like a bad actor lawyer. However, to go back to the beginning a little bit, and I know that there's been a lot of talk about there being regulatory changes in recent years, and that's really a misnomer. Like that not selling a product or a service rule that I mentioned, that was and always has been in place. And most of the vast majority of what has been dubbed as regulatory changes is actually business to business updates by the carriers, where they've insisted that there be a registration process. They've insisted that they've more carefully filtered and monitored certain traffic that's going through their channel. But that has no tie-in to TCPA. That's just a business to business set of best practices that they are enforcing, basically. And that, to make things a little bit clearer, there's no TCPA police. The TCPA or FCC aren't reviewing all of these messages and initiating actions against people. That doesn't happen. It has to be either an individual or a bad actor lawyer that is looking for some sort of settlement. And Now, we send millions of messages a year, and those kind of things happening, while they happen, it's, again, exceedingly rare. The platform wouldn't exist if it wasn't.
Okay, fair enough. So what I'm understanding, you tell me if this is a correct understanding. Let's just say I'm out there like cold texting real estate investors trying to sell them a digital marketing service or something. That, like, as of years ago versus now, maybe that's a little bit more different. But you're saying when you're going to sellers, that's still an exception in the rule where you're saying, let me buy your house. That's not an offer. It's even different from going to buyers.
Yeah, like the easiest example is like a wholesaler versus a licensed agent, right? Because a wholesaler, if you shrink it down and you don't think of it as a big, huge wholesaling operation, right? If, let's say you're at the very beginning of this, you've never done a deal ever, and you drive by I'm an out-of-state landlord. You drive by my house, it's in a state of disrepair. There's weeds in the yard, there's boards on the window. That looks like a potential wholesaling deal. So you get my number and you send me a text message, right? You're allowed to do that. You're an individual reaching out to an individual. You're not marketing a product. You're not selling a service. You're saying, hey, I've got X amount of cash. I'll give it to you for that house. Will you take it? There's nothing against any regulations allowing you to do that. So all launch control is doing is it's allowing you to do that at a clip of 150 recipients at a time, right? So it's taking what would take you 10 hours and it's shrinking it down to 30 minutes. It's allowing you to have those one-on-one engagements. And as far as the recipient knows, they're having a one-on-one engagement with you. You're not marketing it and saying, I'll give you a 30% discount if you work with Bateman Collective LLC, right? You're not selling it as a corporate entity. So it's basically just an expanded version of individual outreach. Now, if you tried to do that as a licensed real estate agent and you reached out to everyone in the neighborhood and you went with an old trope of real estate agents and you said, hey, Brandon, I just sold your neighbor's house for $500,000. I think I could get you that or more if you'd be interested. The implication there is that there's a commission, right? You're clearly representing a real estate company. You're going to get a commission. You want money from me. And now it becomes a much more clear at the point of initial message that this is a business selling a product or a service. It's granted, it's a fine line, but it's an important fine line. And again, none of this is even relevant unless it becomes litigious. And that's just a question of pushback or not pushback, right?
Yeah, that makes sense. Okay, cool. That's good to know how you see the regulations and you see what's been happening. So what is it that most of your clients are doing today that you feel is most successful?
The cold outreach is still probably about 80+% of what people are doing. What we're working on, there's a few things that we do to promote safety within that space. There's, on the tech side of things, we white glove the registration, get everybody set up with the carriers. If people don't have an available website, we create landing pages for them. It's done instantly, and it has all of the necessary check boxes that the carriers are looking for. So they're able to get in and get registered flawlessly, which is a win, obviously. And then we have safety protocols within the system. So we're always analyzing things like the opt-out rate, if a number hits an incorrect destination, things that can potentially get red flagged by the carriers and and again, this isn't regulatory, this is B2B, put your channel that you've established with them in jeopardy. So we will, if necessary, pause traffic, diagnose, fix, and get you back up and running at full speed. So there's that level of it. And then again, like I talked about the coaching and consultation level, we're working with our customer success team. They work on the kind of pacing you want with original content going through the system, the number of touch points that you should aim for when someone is saying opt out without saying directly opt out, and when you should take them off a list. So they're walking through everyone through both success and safety protocols within that space.
Okay, understood. That makes a ton of sense. So what you guys are doing is basically making this whole process of navigating the restrictions that do exist with the technology that we're all using to send text messages, where you have to have the website that has the different things on it and all that stuff. And you probably have to figure out like what messaging you're using and all that stuff. Those are the things that you guys help people figure out.
Yeah, exactly. We want to make it as the shortest point between A and B for everybody to be able to come in, take the data that they've collected and then be able to get responses from homeowners with that data.
Okay. What would you say about volume? I'll tell you what I've heard, and I want you to tell me if it's true or not. And what I've heard is that texting gets significantly more difficult to do as a channel the more volume you do as a company. Even though maybe every marketing channel doesn't scale perfectly. Like direct mail, you're going to run out of a list and you're going to have to go to a not as good list, right? PPC, you're going to have to pay a higher cost per click because now you want twice as many clicks and you have to be an aggressive bidder to make that happen. But from what I understand with texting, getting through the carriers and that kind of thing, if you're small, I'm just looking for a few deals through texting or something like that, and you keep it going at a really small volume, I hear that people are more able to get that to work versus these people who are doing like 15 deals a month from texting years ago aren't finding themselves able to continue to do that. What's your experience?
And that's going to be really heavily dependent on the platform that you use and both the safety protocols and the data, like basically the traffic cleansing protocols that the platform has. There's a ton of people out there that have run into this problem. They're using I won't name a CRM, but they're using a CRM, and that CRM is geared for, they have texting within that CRM, and it's geared for small volume client engagement, right? So maybe you've got 150 active clients, you're reaching out to them to nurture or engage, and it works fine. But as soon as you spike that volume up and you try to do it for cold outreach, the wheels catch, right? And it shuts down. And it's because it's a different protocol, right? Because the carriers, of course, they are monitoring all the volume that goes out through their systems. And there are things that get flagged, right? They want to look and see that there are two-way communications happening. So if they see this rush of hundreds of thousands of messages going out and nothing coming back in, flag, right? If they see when I say they see, the algorithm sees. It's not like there's a person on a 1960s switchboard watching all of this, right? If the algorithm catches that the exact same message or almost the exact same message has gone to 5,000 people in a short span of time, that is obviously going to get flagged as blanket marketing, right? It's no longer you sending me, an individual, a text message about my house with the weeds in the front yard and the boards over the window, right? Now it's something that's clearly being done at volume, and it gets, for safety checks on their end, can get red flagged. To run things at a higher volume, it's very possible. We've got people on an enterprise account that are sending hundreds of thousands of messages. And the way that they're able to do that is most of them aren't fully centered in a single market. Most of them have a few different markets that they go after. And they're really good about putting in fresh data in that area and making sure that data has been really quality skip tracing, maybe even run against a number reassignment, making sure that the data is as fresh as it can be. And then they have a system to rotate their content often, right? And a lot of people are using given AI tools that has sped up the process a lot. But if you're running consistent A/B testing, and then from that A/B testing, let's say your A test wins, and then you create a handful of templates that fit that A test profile, keep that process going, you'll never have any problems. You'll be able to get things through. But you have to be able to think from a carrier. We'll teach this to you, but if you think about it from a carrier's perspective and their desire to have a billion one-on-one conversations, not one company speaking to 100,000 or one company speaking to 200,000, then it makes it a lot more logical why you would need quality content, quality data, and quality A/B testing system.
Understood. So if you do those things right, then you're not getting flagged.
Yeah.
Right.
It might be
easy. Maybe you don't need as high quality of data. Maybe you don't need to change your messaging quite as much if you're sending much fewer text messages. For those people who are doing volume, they find that the quality of the data and changing the messaging keeps them from getting flagged.
Yeah, you got to step up your game a little bit. And my absolute least favorite term in this industry is text blasting, right? Because it suggests no strategy. It suggests just a bunch of data and bleh. You can tell me if you agree, but I think that there's a certain maturation process that's happening within distressed property investment. And the more targeted you can be, the more knowledgeable you can be about the recipient, about the homeowner, the home itself, about the neighborhood that you're investing in. It's really successful investors that are taking an approach where they're, say, for instance, like looking for a place that's within 15 miles of whatever the name of the local airport is, or looking to buy properties that are within proximity of a school district, or they're taking elements of that market and using it to come up with messaging that isn't, hey, you own 47 Green Street, right? They're being more creative with their approaches, and they're A/B testing with data that isn't a list of 5,000, but in small segment lists of 500, or that fit very specific profiles. And then from that, it's less saturation and higher results.
Understood. So you said that probably about 80% of your business is from people doing cold texting. What's the other 20%?
There are 3 or 4 different profit streams that you can get out of launch control when you use it at its peak, right? So the first one is obviously on the outbound side of getting those initial text messages or text responses into your inbox. And then from there, you're using those to pivot to a discovery call, right? Every transaction has to have a discovery call. So most of the time when it hits discovery call, it's then going to get pushed to CRM and is going to go through a nurture process. And leads are going to close, I don't know, maybe 3 to 5% of leads, depending on the shop, sometimes more, but you're not going to close as many as you'd like, right? But those are now motivated leads, or at least partially motivated leads. They were good enough to push over to your CRM. When those leads go through like a 30, 60-day nurture process, some clients are finding a lot of success exporting those names, putting them back into launch, and then doing the nurture through launch control, or keeping them in launch control and activating a drip campaign after they've gone through their kind of hard push in their CRM to have that kind of background nurture going on so that they're able to revive them. Some companies are even taking leads from other sources, paid advertising, direct mail. There was really great inbound opt-in leads that came in, but they weren't able to close, and then using the drip automation function through launch to, again, long-term engage with them until they're ready to convert. So that's a secondary profit stream that you can get by basically taking lead collection from your other marketing sources, reactivating and monetizing those. And then the third would be, I guess, 3A and 3B would be monetizing your realtor and buyer relationships. So if you, for instance, you have a good little side business getting some commission or assignments from realtors in the area, when you push those edge spaces to them, you can nurture those relationships through launch control. So it's as simple as automating some text check-ins with them to see if they've got anything in their portfolio that they're not able to move, anything that you might be able to work with them on. Or again, if you have something that you want to push to them, it's pretty easy just to shoot them a text that way. And then buyers, instead of every time you have a property hitting up every buyer, you send out a text message through launch to get them to opt into a text thread and then find out what their buyer profile is. So if you've got 3 or 4 buyer profiles and you know what they're buying in the next 60 to 90 days, then you can turn around and go back to your outbound efforts and specifically look for what you know they're going to buy, right? So you end up with 3 different profit streams coming out of the platform and higher ROI in the end if you're hitting each of those touch points.
Cool. Yep, that makes sense. Thank you for your time today, Michael. For anybody listening to this that wants to maybe get in touch with you or look at launch control, what's the best way for them to get in touch?
Yeah, just go to launchcontrol.us and book a time with our team. Our team's really great at evaluating those businesses, finding out where they would fit in with the platform, at what subscription level. And then, once you're on board, the first message you're going to get from us is from our customer success team. Take that meeting and set up regular conversations with them because they're a phenomenal resource and they'll really help you stay up to speed on best practices and really thrive within the platform.
Awesome. Thank you for taking the time today, Michael. This has been awesome. And for everybody else listening, I will see you next week.